So they will all be joining us over the next 75 minutes. So I'm going to jump right into it. And our first person I'm going to be speaking to is Devyn, financial planner with RIVR Financial. And Devyn, can you hear me and see me okay?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, that'll get fixed in 1 second. Maybe we'll get going. We've got audio, so that's the important part, and then we'll get the video sorted out in a second. If you want to maybe just take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself and how you got into financial planning, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
That sounds great. Yeah, perfect. Well, and feel free to jump in if you need some clarity on anything, Greg.
Will do.
So I guess my background in high school, I come from an entrepreneurial background. I grew up in a family business. It was actually the restaurant business and some other real estate holdings and stuff throughout the years as well. But I by no means was knew what I wanted to do in high school. But I always kind of was entrepreneurial and was good with finances. So after essentially after school, what I wanted to do is I didn't know what to do. So actually what I did is I went to the local college in town. It was actually Red River College in Steinbach, and I got my marketing diploma there. So after I finished that, I figured I'd keep going on with post-secondary. And so then I transferred everything and got into I got my bachelor's of business administration through the University of Winnipeg. After that, I still was up in the air. I mean, I was going to join my dad in the family business, but it wasn't quite big enough to have two of us there, and my dad was too young at the time, so we didn't bother going that route. So I ended up joining banking. So I ended up working for, I think, Scotiabank and Steinbach Credit Union. I was at Steinbach Credit Union for, I think, 3.5 years, and my wife still works there. And what I did there is I handled estates. I got my mutual fund license, so I was doing some investing, as well as I was doing some lending and did lending for a couple of years as well. All throughout this time, though, when I was 18, I started investing, and I kind of always had a knack and a passion for investing, and just kind of like understanding the idea of planning and preparing for the future, starting young, etc. And I just loved it. So after um, what happened after 3 years of in banking is I got approached by a smaller office, River Financial, where I am today, and got asked if I'd be wanted to move over, kind of do more so personal financial planning, corporate planning, estate planning, etc., but more so be on the self-employed route. So at first I said no, quite frankly, because I have two kids, and at the time I was having my firstborn, and they always say never make too many changes in a short period of time. And I was about to have a first child and make a career change within 6 months. So I said no to my boss's face. But you know what? And then I got a list from him. I remember this very clearly. He said, "So why would you say no?" And I had all these reasons of why. And I was fortunate enough where he had said, "You know what, Devyn, I'll take care of it. I know you're going to be phenomenal at this role. I'll take care of all the no's or why we wouldn't." So I made the change within. So I did. I had a child and made a career change within 6 months, and it was quite frankly one of the best decisions I ever made. Like I'm doing a lot of the same things, but now like the clients are actually our clients, right? When I worked for the credit union system, quite frankly, they're owned by the bank or the credit union. Whereas now the clients are our clients. I have a fiduciary responsibility to them. I got to do some planning with them. A lot of them have become friends over the years, and it's awesome. So over the years too, with some further education. So I currently, like I said, I have my bachelor's but I've also had to get my life license, so life insurance license through over the years, as well as I'm a certified executor advisor, meaning I can assist people with estates, but also kind of do some further estate planning. As well as I'm actually currently in the middle of getting my CFP designation, which is a certified financial planner designation. So that takes some time. That requires 3 years of experience, as well as an undergraduate degree now and a national exam. So I have the experience, I have the undergraduate degree, and I'm just finishing up some courses and hopefully going to write my exam probably in 2025 would be my guess. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do in the background. I love what I do. It's fun. I get best aspects of like what I was good at is with finances and helping people plan, as well as I get to be kind of entrepreneurial, where I'm more or less self-employed. The clients are my clients. I work hard. If I work harder, I get paid more, right? Like it's so I get what I put in, which is very fortunate as well. So, but it also comes with a lot of risk as well. But I love it. So that's kind of my role in a nutshell.
Awesome. Um, I think your video might be turned off, Devin, on your end.
You know what?
I
It's
think.
saying because the host has stopped it. So I don't know if there's
Oh,
something
okay.
on the host end to let me in.
Okay. All right. Our host can hear you, so
Yeah.
she'll check on
Okay.
it. We'll jump into the Q&A now. So if anybody has any questions, please just send them along in the chat, and I will get to as many of them as I can. I've already got a few of them that have popped in here. Um, well, these are questions saying about the video, so we're working on the video. Let me just see what this message. Can you right click? Okay. First question I've got is, um, how involved are you in deciding what your clients are going to be investing in or not investing in? How does that work?
Good question. So it's called KYC, which means knowing your client. So when a client comes through to us to sit down, hey, I want to invest, and that's pretty open-ended of because we need to make sure that the investment matches the client. So what we'll do is we'll ask a series of questions. The biggest one would be, what's your time horizon? If it's a 1 to 2 year time horizon and they're saying I want a 60% rate of return guaranteed, I would say, you know what, we don't do that type of investing. It's too high risk. What we do is we assess the client. We'll say, what's the intended use for the money? They might say, you know what, it's for retirement. I won't be needing the money for 15 plus years, and I'm open. I don't lose sleep at night if my investment were to drop 15% in 1 year. If that's the case, then we assess that questionnaire and with them, and we say, you know what, you're going to be on a scale of 1 to 5, you're probably going to be about a 4 risk level. And then we can allocate the appropriate portfolio that would match their risk tolerance. So it's situational. Like if my 90-year-old grandmother were to come to me and say, you know what, I want to invest 100% into high risk equity type funds, I would need to make sure I do a lot of due diligence and compliance on my end to make sure that she understands the risk that's associated with it. So it's case by case. A lot of younger investors like myself, I can take on more risk and I'm okay with it because I'm in it for a 15-year type time horizon. As opposed to somebody that's in their 60s looking closer to retirement, they will probably take on significantly less and less risk as they get older and older.
Okay. How much schooling or the question is essentially how much school do you have to do now? I know you talked about taking some exams. What's involved in becoming a financial investment advisor
Yeah,
after high school?
good question. You know what? There's a lot of people in our industry that have done really well coming straight out of high school and just doing some of the some life insurance exams, for example, and becoming kind of more so an insurance advisor. That being said, I'm noticing the industry is changing. The issue with our industry is there's often a lot of sometimes pop-up financial shops where they write a quick exam and now they're considering themselves a financial advisor. You have to be careful with that. So they're trying to be more, and that's why I'm getting my CFP designation, because it's more so a nationally recognized designation where it's not just I wrote an exam and now I'm considering myself a financial planner. There's nothing wrong with that. There's two ways you can go about it, but I know they're getting more strict in the sense of having an undergraduate degree and years of experience to call yourself the planner designation type title. So it is changing. I think it's getting significantly more strict in regards to regulation and how you call yourself. But I know there's some really good advisors that have been in it for 20 years that have their high school education and some licenses over the years.
Okay. Question always comes up. How much money can I make being an investment advisor?
Good question. I mean, so there's two streams. So on the financial side, or sorry, on the money side, that's a it's called the trailing commission. So standard usually on, let's say, $1 million block of business that pays about $10,000 a year to the office, right? So 1% trailer is pretty standard, and that as the book grows, we actually get paid more. On the insurance side of things, it's more so transactional. So we're kind of like a realtor, where if I sell life insurance policy, I get paid up front. So like I said, the harder you push and work, the more you get paid. I would say anywhere between, I mean, let's say starting out anywhere from $40,000 a year to probably $400,000 a year. It depends on how long you've been in the business and the extent of the book. We've been very fortunate to keep growing the investment book, which is kind of where I more so specialize, and to kind of have that continued trailer going on. That kind of gives me my safety cushion, I call it, because that amount I know I'm gonna keep getting over the years, and whereas the life insurance side, it's more transactional. So I don't really do my personal budgeting around my life insurance sales.
Okay. How old, totally different question. How old
Yeah.
should I be to start investing?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I started when I was 18, because then you actually have you can actually start purchasing within a TFSA umbrella and those types. So a lot of those savings vehicles that are very handy, you have to be 18. I wouldn't sit down with someone possibly before 18, just because of the compliance behind it with your parents and so forth. But as soon
Mhm.
as you're 18, then you can have access to these various savings programs that the government have put out.
Gotcha. Okay. Last question, and then I got to move on.
Yeah.
What are the hours like? How hard do you have to work at it?
Good question. You know what? I've been fortunate enough to be pretty disciplined. Like I try to stay in the office 8:30 to 4:30. That being said, there's sometimes some really good opportunities, and I meet in the evening. So the hours can be all day, every day. I try to be very disciplined with not working too much on the weekends. But also, what I do, I have complete autonomy over my job. So if I have an evening meeting lined up, I'll actually probably go home for the afternoon and spend some time with my family that way. Otherwise, I'll catch myself working far too much. And it's not working because I love my job, but I also love my family. So you have to kind of
Yeah,
manage that balance for yourself, and be disciplined with it.
gotcha. Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today, Devin. We really appreciate it. And all the best in the future.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
having me.
I'm going to move over now to Jessica. And just for our panelists, you should be able to turn on your video now on your end. And if you can't, just message me on the chat on the side if you're still having problems. But you should be able to turn it on now. I'm going to move over to Jessica Smith, who is a nurse. And can you hear and see me okay, Jessica?
I can, same thing, can't get the video to, the host has stopped the video.
Okay. All right. We'll keep working on it. We're doing old
Okay,
school.
sorry.
No, that's us on our end, so we'll keep working on it. Um, Same idea, Jessica. I know you've been listening in, so could you want to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now, where you are? Because I know you're not. I know you're. I know you're. I don't know where you are. So if you could just touch on that, a little bit about your career, and then we'll jump into a Q&A.
For sure. So, yeah, I'm Jessica and I'm a registered nurse and I'm currently up in a rural community, Mayo, Yukon. It's about 5 hours north of Whitehorse and it's just a nursing station here. I am a registered nurse, but I'm an advanced practice nurse. So we are able to treat and diagnose certain conditions that people come in with. In the community that I work in, there's no doctor. We are it for your healthcare here. So anything that you would typically go to a walk-in clinic, us nurses are able to prescribe and dispense appropriately and treat. And then of course, all your emergency care as well. So we get to work in a really expanded role compared to in the hospital setting. I think like some of the cool things I get to do up here, I get to do casts, stitches, x-rays, you name it, everything you go to the hospital for in the nursing station setting. The nurse kind of encompasses it all. I did work in the hospital setting previously, and I really enjoyed it as well, but I made the move up here and I'm quite enjoying it. little backtracking, but when I was in high school, I was pretty sure I wanted to be a dairy farmer. I grew up on a dairy farm in southern Manitoba, and I thought that was where I was heading. But I did know that I wanted to go to university, so I started taking some like science courses and found I really liked the biology and chemistry, and I enjoy working with people as well. And I kind of fell into the nursing train that way. And honestly, I've never really looked back. It's been such a great fit for me. But it wasn't what I thought I was going to do initially.
Okay.
What else can I tell you? I think one thing, like just healthcare wise, encompassing kind of the whole profession anywhere in healthcare, is there's so much variety within it. So with my single nursing degree, I can go to so many different sections of healthcare, and they're very different. So if you find you don't like one thing, you can move without having to go back to school, and like, yeah, do another degree or a different degree. You can change within the profession. For the role that I'm in now, I did have to do a little bit of extra schooling for it, but it's all online. It was just a 2-year program for the advanced nursing skills. And then lots of like hands-on mentorship up here in the Yukon. But yeah, I guess, yeah,
That's great. I can jump
okay.
into questions.
I was like
I've
ready
got,
for questions.
yeah, I've got them already. Can you tell us a little bit about how long the education process is, and is it expensive?
For sure. So the basic to do a RN program, it's the quickest you can do it is in 4 years, but most people do tend to do it over 5 years at any of like your major Canadian universities. And I've graduated a while ago, but it used to be about like $4,000 per semester to cover those costs and a 4-year program. And then to do the advanced nursing skills, most of those are funded because they're looking for nurses to come up to these rural places. So I actually got paid to complete that course. And it's just online in my own time I did it in about 6 months, but you can take up to 2 years to do it.
Okay. And you're, just so I understand, you're by yourself. You're the only,
yeah, that's correct. I have another nurse partner here with me. But yeah, it's just us two against the world up here.
Against the world. So tell me, how does that work for like, because someone's asking about your hours and how much you work. What is that like being sort of one of a 2-man team?
Yeah, so you do get a lot of hours. We are Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5, like a normal walk-in clinic would be, and then we're on call in the evenings and weekends. So most of us only work part-time up here. We work for 6 weeks and then we're off for 6 weeks, and someone comes in and replaces us because we're working 100+ hours sometimes in a week. So, but then you get your 6 weeks off, which for me, kind of settling down now, but I used to do a lot of traveling. So it was very nice for me to have that flexibility of being able to come and work and then go on a long travel for 6 weeks.
Gotcha. Are there monetary benefits? Is the money better working remotely as opposed to working in a large or small urban center?
Yes, it is. It is. And I mean, every province and territory is a little bit different. Like, I don't get paid a lot more than the nurses in the hospital here in the Yukon, but compared to Manitoba, which is where you guys are all from, it is a significant pay increase to move up to north. And even northern Manitoba, there's a significant pay increase. But there's also a ton more responsibility. So it is kind of like balancing that. Sometimes it's nice to not have the same amount of responsibility.
Of course. Well, and that was the next question that someone had was, do you feel like you're doing more doctor type tasks than you would if you were, again, in a urban center or a smaller center?
Yeah, I think we do a ton of stuff that would be considered what you'd go to your family doctor for, like I was saying. And since it's such a small community, we get to know the patients super well, and we're managing kind of every little piece of their labs, their meds, kind of thing, similar to how your family doctor would do it, because we don't have any. We have a visiting physician who comes here, but it's not technically a family doctor. We're considered their primary care providers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Have another question that came in. Have you ever considered doing anything other than nursing as far as like moving on? Would you want to be a doctor?
So I do contemplate with the idea of going back to school, more for the nurse practitioner route, which would be another 2-year program. And then you can prescribe and dispense and send referrals, which is the referral part I'm not able to do now, or prescribe for narcotics and all medications. So that would probably be the route I would go. Would be the NP route. But at this time, I'm kind of doing that role as is. So I think until you're burnt out of doing on call, you stay here because you enjoy it. You enjoy it.
Gotcha. Someone asked, are there types of illnesses that are more common up north that aren't as prevalent in, again, in urban centers?
Centers. Certain things in the community I'm in, it's actually a pretty like healthy, thriving community. It has road access. It has all the amenities of a like rural Manitoba small town. But there are like increased rates of TB is common up here, more so in like northern Manitoba, none of it as well. But yeah, you do see a little bit of different disease profile here, but overall very similar to what I would like rural Manitoba.
Okay. If someone's thinking about getting into nursing that's in high school right now, is there certain direction as far as courses that they should be taking that would be more beneficial to them to get into nursing?
Yeah, for sure. So just your basic biology is probably the most helpful. And again, it's been a bit since I've been at since I was in this process, but I think just even like you don't have to do like pre-calculus or calculus math. It was applied math when I was there. It might be called something different, but like the kind of set, you don't have to do the top level math, but some math level courses. And then when you go to university, they kind of, at least at U of M, it was, you had year one and you could choose and select a few courses to see what kind of fit you. But if you wanted to do nursing specifically, there's a list of all those courses, and it's a full 1-year course, and you do those courses and then you can get in.
Gotcha. Okay. That's all the time I have for the questions. We got through them all, thankfully. So I really appreciate you calling in. Sorry about the video trouble, but the important part is that we got to hear from you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you joining us, Jessica. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good day.
Okay, take care. You too. Next person we're going to hear from is Anna Donohoe, who is, the company is Malarky Farm. And can you hear me, Anna? I know we can't see you, but can you hear me okay, Anna?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Fantastic. Okay, so you know the format. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the career that you're in, and then we'll jump into a Q&A.
Sure, sounds good. So I'm Anna, and I'm 29 years old, and I am a dairy farmer. So that means we milk dairy cows and we sell the milk for a living. I grew up on my farm, so I spent a lot of time with cows and helping my parents in the barn, but I didn't know if I wanted to farm forever. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was 17. I knew I loved farming. I knew I loved agriculture, but there were so many jobs in agriculture. So I decided to go to University of Manitoba, and I took my agriculture business degree. to learn about the different job options. And yeah, I took 4 years university and I absolutely loved it. I learned a lot about different types of farming, food marketing, financing, food policy. But like, yes, the learning in the school part was great, but I honestly think the university, my favorite part was meeting people and like forming friendships and relationships. So I would encourage you, if you go to university, to like push yourself to be social and to take part in school events. If you get the chance to live in residence, I think that's a great chance to meet people. So university is so much more than just your schoolwork. It's about networking and meeting people. But every summer between university, I got a different summer job. So I did field research for a seed company. I took on a sales position for a chemical company. And then after my degree, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I decided to go traveling. I went to Australia for 8 months and I wanted to work on a farm over in Australia. So I worked on a grain farm for 2 months. And I learned so much on this farm. And I think I just learned a lot about myself. So I would just highly recommend you guys to go traveling if you get the chance. I think it gives you time to like mature, meet new people. You get to like experience another culture, another country, get a job over there. So then it just gives you time to like learn what you're passionate about, what excites you. So that's what I did. And then after traveling, I went home to my farm because my dad and brother needed some help on the farm. And I realized that I love farming and I have not left since. And I think what changed is I realized that there's so many different roles within farming. So, for example, like I spend a lot of my time in the barn with the cows. We feed them, we milk them. We have to look after, all the calves and all the young livestock. We have to grow all the feed so the cows can eat. So I spend time, in the field driving equipment, learning how to grow good crops. So there's so many different jobs every day. But I also am on the business side of the farm. So now my brother and I, we both own our farm. So I spend a lot of time in the office doing the business side, like paying bills, paying the workers, making budgets, making business decisions. So I think that's what I love about my job is that I get to do a little bit of both. I get to go outside, get dirty, work with my hands, work with animals, but I also get to do that business side in the office. What else? Yeah, I guess our farm, like we hire a lot of high school kids. And so, yeah, we hire them. They come after school and they come on the weekends. They help us milk and they feed the calves. And I think it's a great summer job to have. So if you like love animals and you love hard work and getting dirty, it's a lot of fun. A lot of our workers, they did not have any farming experience before they started working for us. And now a couple of them loved it so much that like after high school, they continued working for us. And two others, they decided to go to university for agriculture because they learned that farming is so broad and there's so much underneath agriculture. So just to give you like some examples, how many different jobs there is to do with farming. Like we hire a veterinarian to make sure all of our animals are healthy. We hire a feed nutritionist to help us decide what feed to feed our cows. We hire mechanics to come to our farm and fix equipment. There's milk truck drivers that come to pick up our milk. We work closely with our bankers. So there's just like so many people and there's so many jobs to do around the farm to help get food from the farm to your plate. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you have an interest in like food and animals and plants, I think agriculture is just like a great place. There's just so many opportunities out there.
That's fantastic. That is so interesting. Okay, I've got a few questions right out of the chute. Okay, you already said it's hard work, it's dirty. Can you tell us a little bit Oh, fantastic. We've got video. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think for people, especially people who live in Winnipeg or larger cities, they may have never stepped foot on a farm, and anything they know or think about it is probably it's not Yellowstone, it's not glamorous like that. It's got to, as you said, it's got to be hard work. But can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard work, but if you love being outside and you love animals, like it's fun, it's enjoyable. Like you get a sense of pride,
Yeah,
getting dirty and getting in with the cows because you see them like your job is to make sure they're happy and healthy. So if you do your job, you see these happy cows and it just makes you feel good at the end of the day.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, so somebody who just decides, as you said, students that are maybe still in high school or just out of high school and they want some part-time work. Um, is it, what are they looking at? How much money can somebody make working on a farm?
Yeah, so it definitely ranges. When we hire a high school kid with like no experience, like we start them at like $16. But as they stay with us and gain experience, like it really opens up. Like we would pay between $20 and $25 an hour. But if you decided that you wanted to farm, like, and you specialize in breeding cows, you specialize in equipment or crop plans. Like, if you want to manage a farm, there's a lot of money to be made. Like, people are, making $80,000 on managing herds. So
Wow,
there's definitely, yeah, like if you stick with a farm and you want to farm, there's definitely room to manage and make good money.
awesome. Can you talk a little bit about if this is of interest to somebody who's in high school, are there certain courses they should look at in high school, or and then maybe the second question is when they go to university, should they be zeroing in on a certain faculty? I mean, the obvious one, I suppose, is agriculture, but is it more than that?
Mhm. Yeah. I don't think in high school, unless there's a agriculture course, but I think the biggest thing would just to be if you can somehow get yourself onto a farm. So maybe just asking people that you know, like, hey, do you know of a farmer? Like, do you think I could go for a visit? And then once you get there, ask, like, do you guys need extra help on the weekends? And just trying to get your foot in that way to see if you really would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, but in university, like agriculture, you can take food science, agronomy, so that's plants, there's animal science. I took the business route in agriculture. So, like with my degree, I could be working at a bank, I could be working for a chemical company. So, with your agriculture business degree, there's a lot of jobs that you could get.
Okay. Somebody's asking me the question, depending on the type of farm you're working on, are winters, do you put your feet up and head to Mexico for a couple months? Is it
Right.
easy peasy? Is it easy peasy? And the summer is the grind.
Yes. So typically, yes, for grain farmers, they can only grow their crops in the summer. So they work really hard in the summer. And in the winter, it's slower for them. They, work on equipment in the winter. So yes, it's slower. But for livestock producers like myself, for dairy farmers, we work 365 days of the year. We don't take days off. I mean, no, our cows have to get milked every single day. So that's why we hire lots of workers so we can get breaks. But the cows, they don't stop working. So we got to work alongside them.
Okay. Okay, good segue. One of the questions that just came in is what do you feed cows?
What do we feed them? That's a good question. So we grow lots of different crops. We grow barley or corn, or we grow a polycrop, so a bunch of plants together. And then we chop it down, and you can either make hay out of it. So you dry it and you feed them hay in the winter, or you can make silage. And that's just when you cut it when it's wet and it's growing. And then you put it in big bags and you take the oxygen out of it. And so it's still good when you feed it months later. And
Okay.
grain, we feed them grain. Mhm.
Okay. Um, the in the fall when we see farmers working such late hours, bringing their harvest in, um, are there people that work sort of only in the fall because they're specialized, like perhaps they drive those huge machines that we see across the fields well after the sun has gone down? Is like, are there opportunities to work in that sort of on a part-time basis, or is that a career?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of seasonal work in farming. Harvest in the fall is a great example. Grain farmers always need extra workers, driving equipment, and helping in the fields. Also on dairy farms, like in the summer, we do look for extra help as well. So it's a great summer position. And if you want to go traveling too, like other countries have opposite seasons. So you could do harvest here in Canada, and then you go to Australia and they're doing it at a different time of the year. So you could be doing it that way as well.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
like when I went to Australia, we were taking crop off during Christmas. Like we were in the field in December.
Really?
Yeah, so
That is
there's
very cool.
opportunity there. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, I'm getting the feeling that you guys never take time off. You never get a break.
I think I see my cows more than my friends. Yes, but I love it.
That's fantastic. Um, can you, excuse me, can you talk a little bit about uh, sales jobs in agriculture? And I'm thinking about feed or chemical or stuff like that. And I know that's not what you do, but obviously you interact with people in that type of thing.
Yes.
And talk about maybe that type of career that you see.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, there's so many of those jobs. Like, for example, like since we have cows, there's semen salesmen, right? People to come and sell us like other cows' semen so we can breed our cows. There's feed salespeople that come into our yard and sell us on, grains and different feed. So those people, they would have went to school for agriculture and they would have, got a summer job and loved it and would have continued their career that way. But yeah, there's just endless jobs in agriculture.
Awesome. Okay, somebody is in the chat that obviously knows you and says, ask her about her latest adventure.
Oh, I'm assuming I just got back from Argentina a couple
Okay.
weeks ago, and I was riding horses through the mountains in Argentina, and it was amazing.
Okay, so you do take time off.
I do, yes, of course.
Fantastic.
No, I have a great life. We hire employees so we can leave.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Good for you. How long did you do that?
It was for 7 days. I was on horseback in the mountains with no cell phone, no service. It was awesome.
Good for you. Good for you. Okay, I'm up against it. I hold on, I might have one more question. Nope, I did that one. Okay. I'm going to jump to our next panelist. Thanks so much for joining us, Anna. This was fantastic.
Awesome. It was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Next up is Marni Harrison. Marni's a manager of commercial banking at CIBC. And Marni, I can see you. Can you hear and see me, Marni?
You bet.
Awesome. You've been tuning in, so same routine. If you could just tell us a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are, and then we'll jump into a Q&A.
Sure. So my name is Marni Harrison. I'm a manager of commercial banking at CIBC. My story is similar to Anna's, just with a different ending. I grew up on a mixed beef and grain farm and didn't really thought I wanted to be a lawyer for a long time, maybe an accountant, but the thought of going to school for 7 years after graduating high school didn't really interest me at the time. Knew a lot of people through 4-H and just rural events that were going into agriculture, and everything I'd heard, it sounded like a really great time. So went into agriculture. Similar to Anna, I did a chem rep job one summer. I just worked at a crop input retail one summer. I worked for the Canadian Wheat Board in their policy department for a summer. And then after I graduated, I got hired as a summer student by Farm Credit Canada, which is the federal government lender specific to agriculture. So it was a summer job, but in July, they asked me to consider joining them in their associate program full time. And I liked that idea because I really did enjoy the work we were doing. lots of opportunity to deal directly with farmers, as well as lots of numbers, which I've always been somewhat of a math geek. So that I said, sure, but can I quit for 3 weeks? Because I don't want to just go straight from high school to university to working full time. So took 3 weeks off and went for a little bit of a road trip and then came back. I spent 12 years at Farm Credit, mainly in the Carmen, Manitoba market, but had also started in Brandon and then went up into the Interlake to Arborg. And so got to meet lots of different people that way. Once I had children, I went down to 80% time first. So I only worked a Monday to Thursday position. There was change in management, which happens, and their ideologies changed, and they asked me to work full time while I was still on mat leave with my second child. And I said, well, I have 2 now, so that doesn't really make sense to me. I think we're pretty good at numbers. I have less time. And CIBC, my previous colleague and someone I'd been in university with, was managing the area that would be my hiring manager. And he reached out and said, I'll let you work 80% time if you come over to us. So I've been there now for 11 years. I mainly deal with farmers, but as technology becomes more important, the major banks have much more ability for payables and receivables. So we're seeing a lot of movement of businesses that do international business away from the credit union system. So in the last 2 years, I've actually been working a lot outside of agriculture, still with the core part of my portfolio farms. So yeah, that's what I do. I now do work full time. My job is pretty flexible. I need to make sure that I check my overdrafts every morning to make sure none of my clients have miswrote a check and hadn't transferred the money around. I need to make sure that's done by 9 a.m. It's usually up by 6 a.m. So if I need to start my day early and get away, I can. I do cover a very large marketplace because it's essentially, if somebody wants to do business with me, they can. Because of my time in the Faculty of Agriculture, I have got to know lots of people. And so some of my old classmates have asked me to be their banker, and yeah, then just referrals from there. You kind of just build your book that way.
Awesome.
As far as commercial banking goes, generally, you would get a commerce degree. However, if you are looking to get into banking, there's nothing wrong with having your ag degree, specifically if you're looking at having an in, because honestly, most people want a job in a major center that are applying for banking. So if you're willing to even spend some time outside of, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, having your ag degree and being willing to work in a smaller market and getting in through the ag side would be a very good entrance. I know there's lots of people that apply for the One Lombard office in Winnipeg. They'll have 20 times more applicants than for a rural posting. So it's something to consider if you think that would work. And if you are from the city, maybe you would like the smaller town atmosphere. Or, if you look at a Brandon or a Winkler, Morden, Steinbach, there's still lots of amenities they have. For myself in Carmen, for me to drive into a Jets game, it takes me an hour. It's not the end of the world to do that and still get back the same night and go back to work the next morning, right? So yeah, that's generally what I do. The hours are up to me. I need to make sure my clients are taken care of, so I need to be available all the time. As far as the workload goes, if right now I'm actually sitting in my car outside the convention center because my daughter is in a dance competition, but I got the work I needed to get done earlier today, right? So that's probably the biggest benefit I think to this role, is just the flexibility and the trust, just to say, we know you're going to get your work done, so get your work done. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I have a few questions I'll jump to. You talked about sort of the degree to get, whether it's a business degree or it's an ag degree. What about when you're in high school? If you have an interest in banking, so I've got two questions that have come in. One is, can I get a job in banking part-time while I'm a high school student? Like, how young will the bank hire me as a part-time job? And then the second part of another question is, are there certain courses I should be taking in school if I have an interest in banking, that I should take?
For sure. So 100% yes, you can get, we do have a teller who's been with us for 3 years in Carmen. She would have started her summer between grade 11 and 12. So she essentially picks up all of the holiday shifts for the front staff at the bank. And then it's worked really well. Like Christmas time, she always comes back to town and she takes those shifts. So it's a really nice partnership she has. As far as courses go, your maths are very important. What I will say to you, and I'm not 100% sure if it's the same or not, but and Anna, you might be able to chip in here, but when I was taking my ag degree, if I had a high enough mark in chem and bio in high school, I didn't actually have to take them once I was in university. So I don't know if that's still the same, but that's something to look at. Not because they're bad to take in university, but their course, that's a heavy course load with a lab, so it is a bit more. And then your math side, you don't have to have a higher level of math, but if you're going to want to get your commerce or your ag biz degree, you will be taking a calculus style math once you're into university. So those are important. That being said, like our first panelist said, a lot of banking jobs, if you get in there, whether it's in your high school years or after high school and you start as a teller, they will support you and work your way up. It would be pretty hard to get into commercial banking though that way. Commercial banking, generally you have your business, your ag biz, commerce, that kind of degree, maybe some experience somewhere else, and that gets you in. I can't think of anyone currently working. There's definitely people 10 years ago that they just worked their way up to that role, but not anymore. You might be able to get into small business. And so my portfolio ranges anywhere from $1 to $25 million of either borrowings or cash management needs. And then the small business is $250,000 to $1 million. So you might be able to get into that realm. And if you had large success there, but I haven't seen that myself in the Manitoba marketplace.
Okay. You were talking about earlier, waking up and checking to make sure your clients have an overdraft, which sort of leads me to the question, and someone's asking sort of similar, which is, like all businesses, it doesn't matter if it's agriculture or roofing or plumbing or what your business is, businesses go through tough times. So when a business is going through a tough time, that can't be easy on your end because you're having to obviously not give them bad news because they already know they're in a tough situation, but you may have a tough situation on your end where you may have to do things that aren't pleasant as far as, you know, not being able to lend them more money or things like that. Is that a tough part of your job?
Not really, actually. So the higher you get, so it goes small business, commercial banking, and then mid-market. And the higher you, and so that is defined by the size of the individual portfolios, right? So mid-market would handle anything $25 million and above. But the higher you go, the less clients you have, and the more you actually are more hands-on managing them.
Now, let me just stop you a sec, just so kids understand. When you say 25 million, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean? Is that they're borrowing money, they've got invested with you? What does that mean?
Yeah,
exactly?
either or.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to have a $25 million need, whether it's borrowing or investing.
And so there are, just for everyone's benefit, there are farms and companies that are borrowing that much money.
Yes. 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one of those big combines that you were talking about, like one of them, if you were to buy one new right now, is going to be 1.2 to 1.5 million just for the combine.
So
just for the one combine.
So
and a lot of the time you see multiple combines in the field, right?
Sorry, I was just going to say, so it's easy to get to 25 million.
It's very easy to get to 25 million now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, so that being said, I myself once a week just go and look at all my clients, use of their overdrafts, and if anybody is close to their top or using more than what would be their normal, because you get used to having I have 70 clients, right? So I just get used to what they would be using. It differs throughout the year, so you get used to your book. So the more you can plan ahead and get ahead of things, the easier those conversations are, right?
Okay.
The longer you don't have the conversation, the harder it's going to be to get someone back on track or find a solution for them. So it's that's why I like this size rather than the small business, is I have the opportunity to just be an actual advocate for that client and provide them with support and financial management when they maybe, it could be a very busy time of year. Like, farmers are excellent managers, but sometimes, had a guy yesterday text me and he's like, I forgot to move money across from my first payment, and he was all panicked. And, you know, it's really not that big a deal. We can take care of it, right? So this is the plan. Does that work for you? So the earlier you can get to things, the better. But yeah, there are hard conversations that you have to have. I always say I take more time with a no than a yes, because sometimes no isn't no, it's not right now. These are the things you need to work on to get to the next step for your business.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm almost out of time, but I have one great last question that just came in. What do you like about working with farmers?
So my husband and I still farm. We both grew up on a farm. So farming is near and dear to my heart. When I used to work the Brandon and Interlake markets, I used to, you know, love catching a guy on his farm and he was out doing chores and I could help him and go out with the cattle. Like, that stuff I love. I totally get what Nana's saying, that she spends more time with cows than humans. But the neat thing about farmers, and you find it in other industry too, but farmers specifically, their business is a heritage business. That farm, 95% of the time, has been in their family for 100 years, right?
Yeah.
So there's a really long story and there's a lot of pride in what they do and how they got to that place. So I find it's not like someone who's buying and selling businesses regularly. Their farm is their child, right? And so there's just that extra level of passion and enthusiasm that you get working with farm clients.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, and good luck to your daughter at her dance. And have a great day.
You too.
Take care. Thanks. I'm going to flip over to Jenna Hnatiuk. Jenna is a physiotherapist at Neepawa, beautiful Neepawa Physiotherapy. Jenna, can you hear and see me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Awesome. Okay, I know you've been on, so you know the drill. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump to the Q&A?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Jenna Hnatiuk. I've been a physiotherapist for almost 4 years now. So yeah, I started my physiotherapy journey actually working in a hospital setting. And then I was working part-time in the clinic that I'm in now and decided to jump to full-time private, which means I'm currently self-employed at this clinic. And actually in 2 weeks, I'll be starting a new job as a pediatric physiotherapist, which means I'll be working with children from 0 to 21 years old. And yeah, so I kind of always knew I wanted to be a physio. I was probably about 16 when I really started to think about it. I was a very active high school student. I still am fairly active and have always enjoyed exercising, being outside. Yeah, always found that stuff interesting. And it sounds a little bit sadistic, but if someone would get hurt at a sporting event, I would just be really interested in it and kind of think it was neat and want to see, like, you know, what can we do for this person? So yeah, I knew that it was something I wanted to do. So when I got into university, I started at the University of Manitoba in University 1, and there was a lot of courses that you could take that were just about human anatomy, sports science, things like that. And I jumped into those just to make sure that I did enjoy it, and I really did. And then I knew I had that goal and just kind of went for it and never really thought about anything else. And yeah, I love what I do. So yeah, it's been great.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, basically, physiotherapy, it's a master's program at this time. So you have to take a degree before you get into the program itself. So you can do anything from a 3-year to a 4-year degree. And you can take anything you want. You can take music, you can take agriculture, you can take kinesiology. There's just, I believe it's 9 courses that you have to take within your first degree in order to be able to apply for the physiotherapy program. And the program itself, once you're in, is 2 years long. So yeah, in total, it can take you anywhere from 5 to 7 years. Most people do it in 6 to 7. And I did mine in 7. I did a kinesiology degree in my first 5 years, and then I went into physiotherapy after that. It's a very competitive program. So my advice to students is, if you're wanting to do physiotherapy, focus on your marks, but try to have some fun along the way. I agree with Anna when she said university is just more than going to school. You want to meet people, and I've have many great friends from university and met my fiance that way. And yeah, so I also recommend that, but definitely focus on your grades if you're wanting to be a physiotherapist.
I'll jump into the Q&A if that's okay. I've got a few questions already. Right out of the chute, how much money can I make being a physiotherapist? Now, I'll ask it maybe 2 ways. One, if you're an employee at a clinic owned by somebody else as opposed to owning a clinic.
Yes. So in public physiotherapy, so that would be anything in the hospital, working, like I'm going into this pediatric job, that would be considered a public job. You usually start at about 70,000, and you can work your way, I would say, up to 85, maybe 90. Private clinics, if you're busy enough, that's the tricky thing, because you can be an employee in a private clinic, but it's usually commission based. So you're paid on the number of patients that you see. I am self-employed at the clinic I'm at. So I make right now a 50% commission off each patient that I see. Okay. But you can make it depends how much you want to work too. Yeah. But I would say anywhere from 80,000 to 120,000 a year. But if you're making the 120,000, you're very busy. You're probably been working for a few years and have a high commission, or you own your own business.
Gotcha. And I've asked other people this. Does a physiotherapist make more money working in a smaller community or a remote community, perhaps, than as opposed to like a Winnipeg or a Brandon?
Yeah, based on just like colleagues that I've spoken with who still practice in Winnipeg, I think starting out in a city is a little bit harder, just because you can't get clientele as quickly because there's so much competition around you with like several clinics. Whereas working in a small town, there's such a need for any medical professional. Even like the clinic I'm at, there's only 2 of us, and we are always very busy. Some days we don't take a lunch, like we work more hours than we should be. And, so it's if you're willing to leave the city and go to a smaller area, it's definitely worth it. You'll have a caseload very quickly. You get to know your clients very well. And so I would say so.
Okay. What is the question that came in? What's the hardest part about your job? And I'll piggyback that, and I'm gonna assume it's like perhaps clients where you can't help them, or it's difficult to help them because I guess some things are just tough to fix.
Yes.
But I don't want to answer the question for you, so if that could be part of it.
I would agree with that. As you get into the field, they say like there's always that 10% that you can't seem to help. And I find that that's very true. We deal with a lot of chronic pain, and I think chronic pain would be one of the tougher things. So that's basically anyone who's been dealing with pain for years. It's kind of sometimes unexplained, sometimes not. But pain, I could go into a whole other conversation with that. Pain is very complex. And so it becomes a lot of like almost there's a psychology to it, right? And that yeah, it's tough to deal with that kind of stuff, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I would say dealing with work injuries can be very tough, because sometimes if people don't like what they do for work, their pain is actually worse, which has been like proven by a lot of
Oh,
studies. So it can be
really?
really difficult. Yeah, it can be difficult to return someone to work when they've been hurt at work and they don't like their job. So
Interesting.
yeah.
And best part about your job?
I love
Or
people.
yeah.
Yeah, I love meeting people. I've gotten to meet all kinds, all ages. You get to talk to people every day, and it's also always it's different every day. You deal with different injuries every day. You're always meeting new people, so it doesn't ever feel tedious or boring. It's always a variety, and you get to think, but you also get to use your body, so it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, are there certain courses? I think I've asked everybody this. Are there certain courses in high school that you should be sort of targeting if this is of interest?
Yes, they want you to have your biology, and they want you to have either applied math or pre-cal. Um, and then I think in English as well, because you do need to take English in university. There could be a few others, but if you're interested in going to the U of M, they have a website or a page just for physiotherapy, and that'll explain all of
Oh,
that. Or I know
okay.
when I was in high school, was 12 years ago now, but they had just a sheet that would say physiotherapy. It would say what high school courses they need you to take. So if those are still available, yeah.
Okay. I think I'm right up against it. And so I don't want to. I want to make sure I have time for Skylar. So I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I'm glad you're busy. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Okay, next up is Skylar Shnier. Skylar is a pilot with Calm Air. Skylar, can you hear and see me okay?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can. Fantastic.
All
Okay,
right.
you know the drill by now. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to be where you are in your career path, and then I'll jump into some question and answers.
Yeah. So in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of figured the path I was going to take was going to end up being either a lawyer or something in business. I never wanted to sit behind a desk, and I never wanted to do a 9 to 5. Never wanted to bring my work home with me. I met some pilots one day, and they were the happiest guys in the world. They loved what they did, and they loved their lives. I copied them. I went and started doing my training. I became passionate about it very quickly. The training was really, really difficult. Um, really stressful. You got to be able to do all sorts of things while you're flying a plane. You got to do math, you got to do physics and all that. Once the training ended and once I started working, it's been the easiest thing ever. You hit autopilot, you sit to talking to the guy next to you, you go to awesome places. If you want to, we all love flying airplanes, so you can turn off autopilot, fly the plane. Um, on my way to getting to where I was before, I was at an airline. I was flying skydiving planes. That was also amazing. Um, Obviously, everybody's just having fun there, and you get a lot of freedom flying skydiving planes. You drop the people, you race them down. It's a really fun job. It's really great for someone like myself who doesn't want to do 9 to 5 and doesn't want to bring work home with them. I'm sure you can imagine. We get to go lots of cool places too and meet lots of cool people. I fly the Winnipeg Blue Bombers a lot. I flew the Winnipeg Jets to their game in Nashville on April 9th. There's a lot of cool opportunities in this career for sure. I don't really have too much more to say about myself. I'm sure there'll be questions. I think you're muted, Greg.
Thank you. I got a bunch of questions already. Okay, you jumped from it was really difficult. It was the hardest thing to.
Yeah.
It was easy. I put it on autopilot. So hold on, take us through that for a second.
Sure.
So you mentioned difficult math and stuff like that. So can you kind of explain that a little bit about what was difficult about the training and such?
Yeah, well, you're definitely not driving the car. It's very, very different. You got to use your hands and your feet while you're flying, and obviously your brain. Um, like an example of something that gave me a lot of trouble was they teach. So when I go to work, we have a fancy GPS. I punch in that we're going from here to Nashville, and I hit autopilot, and the plane will do it. No problem. When you're learning how to fly, you you get nothing at all. You've got to use a pencil and paper.
Okay.
You've got to say, I don't know, like they'll give you a paper map and they're going to say you're going from Winnipeg to Brandon. You start flying to Brandon and then they'll ask you, well, you've got to hold the plane level, maintain your speed and your attitude and altitude, such and such. They'll say, okay, what, how fast are we going? Because the plane will tell you your airspeed, but with wind and other factors, you don't actually know how fast you're going over the ground. So you'll have to say, you'll look at your watch, you'll say, okay, I'm over Winnipeg, I'm over the Fort White, someplace at this time, start a timer. While you're flying, get to the next place, and then you say, okay, it took me this long to travel this distance. I'm traveling this speed. If I maintain this, then I'll be able to get to Brandon at this rate. It's a lot of very, very complex calculations and things that they ask of you that truthfully you'll never need, but it's good to see that you can do it. It's good to see that you can use a paper map. I don't foresee another time in my life that I'll ever even look at a paper map in aviation, but
Really?
quite the challenge for sure.
Okay, so it's a little harder than when I watch my nephew landing on his video game, landing
Yeah.
on the airport, picking around the world. Okay.
Yeah, landing is
Uh,
the part.
okay. Couple questions that came in. How long did it take you for the, how long did it take for you to train for your CPL? And how long from when you started training to when you started working at Comet?
So I started my PPL in 2016 and I got my CPL in 2018.
Can you tell us what those stand for?
Yeah, so your private license, private pilot's license, PPL.
Okay.
It's relatively easier than the commercial license, but truthfully, by the time you've got a private license, you've kind of they put you through the ringer. Like you know what's coming. And the commercial license, honestly, it kind of seemed easier to me after. The private license takes about 50 hours to get. The commercial license takes 200. 200 on top of that 50, so or included in that 50, so 150 after that. And getting the commercial license is awesome. Like you get the private license and you're with an instructor, you're stressed out. You get the commercial license, you're flying with friends, you're flying with your family. Like you can take people to get your hours. So that whole thing took about 2 years. There's also a multi IFR after that, which I took a huge break. I took way too long of a break. I got the multi IFR in 2020, so I took like a whole year off. And as soon as I got the multi IFR, COVID hit and shut everything down. So I started flying with Comair in 2022. So just because of COVID, but there are people who have done the whole thing, like they fly twice a day, every day. They get from their first flight to being fully licensed in 6 months.
Wow. Okay. Somebody says, tell me more about being a pilot to take people skydiving.
Okay, yeah, that amazing. So I did that because I had my commercial license, so I could fly. I could fly for money, but I couldn't fly like a jet. I couldn't fly a plane with multi engines, so there wasn't a lot of jobs for me. I should have gone and gotten that multi engine license, but I decided to go. I've got a cabin in Winnipeg Beach. There's a skydiving place in Gimli. I got a job there, and it was amazing. Like you go in on the weekends, you hang out with the guys, and when they're ready to go, they go find the pilot and they say, "Let's do this." You fly up, and in commercial flying, there's usually a lot of rules, and someone tells you exactly how to do things. But at this job, they said, "Get in the plane, do whatever you want. Just get us this high. We'll jump out and meet you on the ground." And it was just really, really awesome. Got tons of cool pictures, saw tons of cool things. It's just nice to have to first of all not be paying a bunch of money to fly the plane, never mind getting paid, and to have that freedom to do whatever you want. Like you've got a door open, you just drop people out, and now you're racing them down. It's exhilarating, it's fun. It seems more like something that someone would do as a leisure activity than for a job.
Awesome. That's very cool. What does it cost for the training and education to become a pilot? Is it expensive?
Yeah, there's again, depends how hard you work. Like if you really wanted to work hard and go to school every day, fly every day, you could probably get it everything in 30 to 40,000. If you really take your time, like I know guys who, because obviously this is a skill, a profession that demands great skill. So if you take your time, you're going to lose that skill. You have to relearn it. I know guys that have spent like 60 to 70 on it. So it's a bit of a range.
Gotcha. What when you're flying to places like Nashville, how long is that flight? How do you occupy your time? I know you talk about you make it sound pretty easy, like you flip it on autopilot,
Yeah.
but is there much for you to do once it's on autopilot and it's a long flight like that?
Yeah. It depends on the guy you're flying with, and I don't want to like everyone should know that like pilots definitely like they'll play games or read books or watch something. Like we're encouraged on flights like that to do something that'll keep us awake. Usually at Comair, uh, everybody you fly with is super friendly and you make friends. Like at Air Canada, there's so many pilots you'll never see the same guy twice, so it might be different. But at my company, I'm close enough with the guys that we can hang out and talk. Maybe we'll uh, read a book or watch a movie. Some guy brings a chessboard with him and we play chess, stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
just anything you need to do to just kind of keep your mind sharp.
Okay. Question always comes up. How much money can I make being a pilot? And I guess the broader question is, I guess it depends on working for smaller airlines that maybe fly just within Manitoba or Nunavut, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
versus the Air Canada versus, worldwide, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you the numbers that I know because everyone wants to hear the big exciting numbers, and that's what all the
Okay.
pilots I know talk about. So you got like Cathay Pacific, Delta. Those guys will make the ones that. So I'll explain how pilots get paid first. At pretty much every airline in the world, we're guaranteed to get paid for 80 hours of work a month because that's kind of the standard. We work 80 hours a month.
Okay.
So if I work, say, 60 hours, I get paid 80 hours. Now, if you go into overtime, it's standard time and a half. If you get called in on a day off, it's time and a half, stuff like that. So the guys at like Delta and Cathay, if they were to not work at all and just get those 80 hours, I think the captains make about 300 to 400, but the guys that work really hard make 700 to 800. Like it's quite
Wow.
easy. You can definitely double your salary. You get paid per diems, and the 80 hours is not a lot. Like it's quite easy to get into overtime 80 hours. As you guys know, you work 80 hours in 2 weeks, right? So
Yeah.
not much. My airline, the captains make 200 before overtime and stuff. Co-pilots way less. A co-pilot starts at like 70 at my airline. At Air Canada and WestJet, I think they're starting at 90. Nobody becomes a pilot to be a co-pilot forever though. So
Okay. What's the best part about the job? What's the number one thing you love about it?
seeing the world for sure. It's sometimes it's with work, sometimes it's just because it's a really nice flexible schedule, which
Yeah.
the schedule's close to being my favorite part, I'd say. But
Okay.
we've got all this free time. Like we'll work, say you work 7 days, you get 7 days off. And when you work with an airline, you get standby flights, so you only pay the taxes. So I
Nice.
go to, yeah, it's like you can travel from here to LA or here to Toronto, and it's about $20. So it's really easy to go all over the place and see the world. And never mind that, just getting like going to Nashville, say with the Jets, that was
Sure.
awesome. I'd never
Sure.
been to Nashville. I got 2 days there to do whatever I wanted. All I had to do was fly them there, and then I'm there, and I get to do whatever I want. Like it's a lot of freedom. You really
That's
don't
great.
take anything home with you when you're off work. It's nice.
Any negative? Anything that sort of people should be aware of? I mean, besides it being really tough in the training, I suppose. Is
Yeah.
there any negatives once you're a pilot?
Once you're a pilot, honestly, I'm not being biased. I can't think of anything, but to become a pilot, like even once you've got the license, there are some airlines that'll say, like Comair, I worked for them during COVID on the ground doing like paperwork stuff. And that's pretty common. Like there's lots of airlines that'll say for your first job, well, right when you're out of flight school, you got to load bags or you've got to do paperwork, stuff like that. Now the industry, as some of you may have heard, is booming right now. Like there's a complete shortage of pilots and a complete demand for travel. So lots of guys are kind of just getting straight on. But in a more normal economy, we would have more cases of guys having to work on the ground for maybe a year before they get into the plane.
Sure. Any thoughts on students that are in high school right now that are thinking about this might be of interest to them? Is there certain courses they should take, or is there certain things they should investigate and look into that you think of?
Well, first of all, I think as long as you're over 16 or 17, I think that you can get your private license. So you could go for, it's called a discovery flight. You could go to a flight school, Harv's or Winnipeg Aviation. They're both in St. Andrews, one in Steinbach as well. And an instructor will just take you on a couple laps. You can fly the plane, see if you like it. For courses, at least applied math, if not pre-cal. Just a lot of it you wouldn't even use in the airplane, but just having sharp math skills, being able to do math quickly is important. Physics as well, but none of these are essential. These are all just things that would help.
Okay. So I don't know if you just answered it. Did you? Someone's asking in the chat, how do you have to be a certain age to start training?
You do, but I think it's like to start training. I think you can be like 14 or 15. Honestly, you just won't be able to get the first license till you turn 17. Right. And I do know some guys that like learned how to fly as a kid, and then as soon as they turned 17, they did the test, got the license, went from there. So
wow, nice.
Yeah, definitely something you could do young.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm 2 minutes overtime, so I better jump off. Thanks so much for joining us, Skylar. This was awesome. Yeah. It sounds like a fascinating career, and all the best in the future.
Great time, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care. Yeah. Have a good day.
You as well.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us. And this was our second event. We'll have our third one on May 7th. So check your emails. You'll be getting another. And look forward to seeing you on May the 7th. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.